Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. On this week's episode, I'll be speaking with Washington double murderer James Ruzicka. James Ruzicka is responsible for the rapes of at least half a dozen girls and women and the murders of 2 teenage girls. He had a pretty bad upbringing, which he'll speak about, and it seems he's always had an insatiable sexual urge. Going back to what I can find on his case, he had sexually assaulted at least 6 women and girls, dating back to when he was just a teenager. In 1973, at the age of 23 years old, he was found guilty of raping 2 women at knife point, receiving a 10-year prison sentence. The sentence was suspended on grounds he received sex offender treatment at Western State Hospital, which is our criminally insane hospital. Not long into his sentence at Western State, he found a way to escape the institution and left a secured psychiatric facility. Ruzicka ended up living in Seattle, not too far from where Western State Hospital stands to this day, and was living rent-free with his ex-wife and her new husband at the time. He eventually left on his own. Less than a month after his escape from Western State Hospital, Ruzicka would go on to rape and murder 16-year-old Nancy Kinghammer and 14-year-old Penny Haddenham. Both girls had been abducted by Ruzicka. Investigators found Penny's body and had determined that she had been raped and strangled. Her body was found hanging from a tree. A month after Penny's body was found, her half-naked body was found covered up with debris and trash in a vacant parking lot, which was used as a dumping ground. There were towels found with Nancy's body along with a knife, which were found near the crime scene, which would be traced by homicide detectives to the home of Ruzicka's ex-wife. James Ruzicka was arrested in Beaverton, Oregon on an isolated charge of statutory rape involving a young girl he claims he was in a relationship with. Ruzicka told police, "I asked her if she wanted a ball, and she didn't say no, so I figured she wouldn't mind." After being arrested for the rape, Ruzicka eventually confessed to the double murder in Washington and later was extradited to face trial. Upon returning to Washington, James Ruzicka was convicted on both counts and was sentenced to 2 life terms, which are to run concurrently. Authorities in Oregon had reportedly ordered a series of hormone shots for him designed to reduce his libido. I talked to James Ruzicka about his life growing up, the childhood abuse he went through, his inappropriate behaviors growing up, the cases that landed him in prison, and life 46 years later in prison. Here's my interview with double murderer James Ruzicka.
This is a Global Tel-Link prepaid call from
Jim Ruzicka.
an inmate at Monroe Correctional Complex.
What was your childhood like growing up?
I got beat, abused, physically and sexually both, by adults who I trusted and thought of as family. We call them uncles or grandma and grandpas or whatever, or aunts, uncles.
So your aunt, uncle, grandma, and grandpa abused you?
Yeah, I get beat pretty bad on numerous occasions for absolutely nothing. Stepdad had come home drunk, and I was a happy-go-lucky little punching bag.
And that went on for how long?
Most of my younger life, up until about 12 years old.
Nobody ever did anything? Nobody ever stepped in or called the police or anything?
Nope. A few times, I tried twice going to people and asking for help and telling them what was going on, and nobody believed me.
Was that your uncle that was abusing you?
Yeah.
Was he abusing your aunt as well?
My stepdad. And my stepdad and aunt.
Oh, okay. So it was pretty much fair game then with all of them?
Yeah.
What about the sexual abuse? Where did that come into play?
From all of them, actually. I didn't know any better at the time.
Do you remember any specific incidents that occurred?
Not really. I blocked most of them out. Turned around and tried to even turn around and told my mom once what was going on, and she didn't believe me. She said something to my stepdad, and my stepdad beat me with a belt, locked me in a closet for almost a day, and I got out and I ran away. Like when I was younger, people called me a psychopath, and from my understanding, a psychopath is a person that has no feelings or regards for anybody or anything. And that pretty well fit my description at that time of growing up.
You've been deemed a sexual psychopath. And the definition of
Yeah.
that term is the condition of a psychopathic or sociopathic personality manifested by the commission of sexual crimes. Do you agree with
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
in your case?
At that time, yeah. As a youngster and as a kid, that was my way of striking back at others, taking all the anger and everything I felt.
So let's talk about your behavior. I know that you engaged in some deviant behavior growing up. Can you talk about all
Yeah.
that as much as you remember?
Oh, damn. Ah, I don't remember a whole lot. I know when I turned around and I went to two different doctors and turned around and told them what I wanted to do and what I felt like doing when it came to women or girls my age. They turned around and told me, they said, well, that's normal for a person your age, for a kid your age.
What was it that you felt like doing that they told you was normal?
Taking them against their will, doing what I wanted to do, trying to hurt others and to replace the hurt that I was feeling, if that makes any sense. To me, it made sense then. Now, no, it doesn't make any sense. I've learned a lot in the last 50 years.
Did you target women specifically to take the frustration and hurt out on the ones that abused you?
Yeah, that, and usually it was somebody that resembled somebody that had abused me. I broke my stepdad's shin once with a baseball bat. He walked into the house one night, and I was waiting for him. I went after him with a knife one time when he was beating my mom. The judge at that time turned around and told me that I should have finished the job. And I took that as a signal, yeah, well, whatever I do is right. I was justifying what I was doing. If I could take back everything that I've done, I'd do so in a heartbeat. If it meant giving up my life to do it, right now I'd do so. You know, I regret what I've done. But there's absolutely nothing I can do to change it.
Did you engage in any type of criminal activity at an early age in life?
Yeah, burglaries, robberies. On my 13th birthday, I was given my clothes on the back, sack lunch, and a one-way bus ticket, and a $5 bill to Seattle, Washington, from Port Angeles. And I was in Seattle not too long, and there was an older dude on the streets one night, and he turned around and said that he was going to take my money and do whatever he wanted to. I stole a pistol, and I turned around and I shot him. It was a .22 pistol. But I shot him in the leg. I didn't know it was the leg then. I found out later. But when it happened, he went one way, I went the other way. Yeah, we seen each other 6-7 months later. I was in Penny Arcade in downtown Seattle, and he walked in. He seen me and he booked. You know, I guess I don't know if he was scared of me or what I do or what. But stealing, robbing, and whatnot was the way I had to survive. It was the only way to survive, because if you went to the law or anybody else at that time, when I was 13, they'd lock you up in the institution or put you in a juvenile home. And I didn't want no part of that. I didn't trust adults in any shape, way, or form.
Did you ever engage in any type of abuse or torture towards animals?
No, I experimented with birds, trying to see what made them tick, but that was it.
What did you do? Like torture them while they were alive?
I cut it open and see what was inside it. Try to figure out what made it tick.
Did you come to a conclusion what made it tick?
No. When I was going to school at the time, and I told the biology teacher that I couldn't figure out what made the bird operate the way it did.
How many times would you say you did that?
A couple times. Not 2-3 times.
Did it feel good every time you did it?
No, it was more out of curiosity at the time. I wasn't doing it to be cruel.
You didn't get any sexual pleasure from it or anything like that?
No, none at all.
From the research I've done on you, what little is out there, I've come across some type of bestiality that you partook in when you were younger. Can we talk about that?
No. Yeah, I was never into bestiality or doing anything with animals. That's nowhere in my criminal history even. Never been charged with it, accused of it.
So where did that come up then?
Ann Rule was the first one to ever say it. And I don't like speaking of somebody that's passed on, but she said that she talked to my mom and relatives and everything else. And when I asked all my mom and relatives about it, they said they'd never spoken to the lady. She sensationalized her stories by adding stuff to them. I've been accused of doing so many things, it was unreal.
How old were you when you started committing sex crimes?
About 17, 16, 17.
What was your first crime?
I got the gal that was from Bremerton. She was about my same age. We got to partying and drinking and doing drugs. And one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden she wanted to call it quits, and I said no.
And what happened after that?
I got the hell out of town real quick.
Did you molest her or rape her, or did you just leave?
Force her to have sex.
So you raped her?
Yeah.
How many times did that happen?
There was a couple times.
How many times as a couple? Would you say 3, 4, 5?
Probably 4 times, 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times. So almost half a dozen rapes. And this is as a young teenager.
Yeah. I never hurt anybody. I never went out of my way to physically harm anybody until the ones that I killed. And that was more out of fear and anger and everything else, all like a soda bottle building up to explode. And it was more out of fear. It wasn't something that was pre-planned or well, I'm going to do this.
After each time the rapes would occur, what did it do for you?
Afterwards, absolutely nothing.
So
I had gratification of the release at the time, but afterwards I blocked everything out of my mind. I push it out of my mind, not think about it or dwell on what I'd done.
So you didn't feel bad afterwards?
That was not really. I didn't think about it. I always tried to justify what I did by saying, well, they had it coming.
Do you feel bad now?
Yeah, I do now. I feel real bad. If I'd have known the things that I know now, it would have never happened.
You're originally serving time in Western State Hospital. You received a 10-year prison sentence, which was suspended on the condition that you joined the sex offender program at Western State Hospital, to which you did. What were you sentenced for, and what are the details surrounding those cases?
An attempted rape in Seattle, and I got sent to Western State. I was there. The counselor that I had at the time said, well, I was almost ready to go out on work release, all that garbage, trying to build my self-esteem up, I guess, and they wouldn't do anything. They put me in charge of the group, which gave me a little bit of more freedom, and I turned around and left there. I took off.
How did you escape?
I walked off. I worked in the kitchen and just went in one door and out the other. I turned around and even called when I was on the run from Washington State. I even called back to our group, and they turned around and said that, well, if I came back, I wouldn't be sent to the prison. I'd turn around and continue on the program. And at that time, I heard the the person that was in charge of the floor, the lady that was in charge of us, turned around and said, no, he's going back to the joint. And when she said that, I turned around and slammed the phone down and got the hell out of Dodge.
So not long after you escaped, you would go on to rape and murder 2 teenage girls after that.
Yeah.
So it was actually 4 weeks after you escaped, 16-year-old Nancy Kinghammer and 14-year-old Penny Haddenham are found dead, and it was determined that they had been raped and murdered, and you're convicted of both of their murders. Can you walk us through everything that led up to these crimes? What happened after the escape from the hospital up until the murder of Nancy and Penny?
Well, after I left from the hospital, I didn't give a damn anymore because I figured, well, they're going to take me back to the penitentiary anyway. And I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and to hell with anybody else. You know, I didn't care at that point in my life. I didn't care whether I lived or died. You know, I tried to do things by going to people and talking to people, which did no good, and all that did was reinforce my stupid thinking at the time, saying, well, whatever I do is okay, because these people are just supposed to know something and supposed to help you, to say it's normal. I use that as a justification, and when I took the lives of those 2 girls, it wasn't so much that I was justifying stuff, it was more out of fear than anything of being caught. I ended up raping and killing them both. It wasn't something that was planned. It was spur of the moment type thing. I was angry on both occasions. Very angry.
Were these victims subdued, or did you take them at knife point like you did your previous victims, or did you have a gun? How did you get them to come with you?
No. I just told them a story that I had a friend that was hurt and needed help. I didn't have any weapons on me.
And was that in both cases? You said that you had somebody that needed assistance?
Yeah.
And then where did you take the victims after that?
Into the woods.
Into the woods. And what happened in both instances?
I ended up killing them. I was more out of fear, anger. I did everything I could to justify what I was doing, but looking back on things, I wish to God I could have turned around and take it all back.
What do you think you could have done to prevent both murders? Looking back now, almost 47 years ago.
Had myself locked up. I went and tried to get help on more than one occasion. Even my mom knew about that. And every time I tried to go get help or something, try to explain to somebody what was going on, these are professionals, supposedly doctors. They tell me, oh, don't worry, it's just normal thinking. So I took that as saying, oh, well, it's nothing that's wrong. That's what I used as a justification, and it was wrong.
Do you think it would have helped you if you wouldn't have left the hospital early?
Yeah, I think so. If I could take it all back, I'd do so in a heartbeat. I've lived in prison here for the last 50 years, and I'm going to die in prison. I have no doubt about that.
So, what was the aftermath of the second murder? What did you do next? I know you weren't arrested until, weeks after, and that was in a different state.
I was hitchhiking around the country, all over the place. I went to Oregon, California, Montana, North, South Dakota. Went down to New Orleans.
And what were you doing in the meantime? Were you just lollygagging around, or were you just?
No, I was going from job to job. When I needed money, I'd turn around and get a job.
Were you committing any
And then
crimes
I turned around
throughout that amount of time?
No. At that time, no. After the murders, I didn't commit any other crimes.
Eventually, you're arrested in Oregon on a statutory rape charge, months after the two murders. What took place with that rape? Was it another forcible rape?
No.
What happened?
No, that was me and another gal. Me and a gal that were supposed to. We got together and we were supposed to get married. Had her parents' approval, and then we went out drinking and partying with her parents. And her dad got real pissed off, called the cops on us after giving us the okay, saying, "Yeah, you guys can get married."
And how old was your victim at the time?
I think she was 14.
How old were you?
19.
Have you always been attracted to younger children?
No. At that time, I was.
Do you know why you were at the time?
No, I don't.
So while you're in Oregon, I believe you confessed to the two homicides in Washington State, and shortly after you were extradited to stand trial for the two murders. How'd you feel when you were on your way back to Washington to stand trial for the rape and murders of Nancy and Penny?
Oh, I was upset. I was hurt. You know, I didn't want to go to prison. I knew what was going to happen.
In 1974, you're found guilty on both counts, and you're sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Do you remember the feeling you had 46 years ago when the judge handed down those 2 life sentences to you?
Relief. Believe it or not, I was angry, but I was at the same time I was relieved because I knew I was going someplace where I couldn't hurt anybody again. You know, I'd spent most of my life locked up. A lot of the juvenile stuff was running away from home and stealing and stuff like that. So prison and homes became my home. That was home to me. I was lost in the outside world.
Have you ever been in trouble in prison due to your crimes with other inmates or staff or anything like that?
A couple of times with inmates.
What happened?
I got stomped out pretty good on one occasion. On another occasion, the guy pulled a shank on me. I pulled one back. I said, "Let's party."
Did anything happen from that? Did you guys just go your separate ways?
Yeah, we went our separate ways.
So are you housed in protective custody due to your crimes?
Yeah, I was for a while.
But you're no longer in protective custody?
No.
Have you or do you still have homicidal or violent sexual thoughts in prison?
None.
What do you think keeps those thoughts away at night?
A lot of that has to do with because prison will do one or two things to you. It'll either destroy you and turn you into a stone-cold animal, or you can change. And over the years, I decided, no, I want to change. I don't want to be the person that I've been. And a lot of that came through education and talking to people and counseling and things of that nature.
So you feel you're no longer the same person you were 46 years ago?
Definitely not. If I was to get out right now, I'd never end up in jail or prison again.
What makes you so sure of that?
Because I'm not the same person I used to be. When I was younger, I didn't care about anybody or anything. Right, wrong, it didn't matter to me. I didn't care whether I lived or died. Now it's not the same. Now I care about other people, helping younger people stay out of places like this here.
So you feel that you have more human emotion now than you did back then?
110%.
So with that being said, you've been deemed a sexual psychopath. Do you feel that that label doesn't fit anymore, or do you feel like you're more, it's more easy to control those different thoughts or
It
compulsions?
It doesn't fit me anymore. It doesn't, I don't fall, personally, I don't fall under that category anymore. Now I care, not only about myself, but about others. Others mainly. You know, if it came between me and somebody else being hurt, I'd step in.
So would you call yourself a reformed psychopath?
Yeah. Instead of heading down the same road that I used to be on, I changed from that. I changed from that because I hated what I was and who I was.
Before we conclude this interview, is there anything you would like to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
I just wish I could take it all back. That it never happened. I'm not asking people to feel sorry for me or woe's me type thing. So, if this interview helps somebody in some way, great. You know, I've been alone for a lot of years. You know, you kind of get used to it. I'm not asking people to like me or feel sorry for me in any way. What happened to me, I deserved.
That was my interview with James Ruzicka. Go check out my Patreon, patreon.com/unforbidden-truth. I have additional exclusive interviews, a true crime gallery you can check out, among many other perks. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
Unforbidden.